Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of this little show that I like to call Spill It. Spill It is a show where I get to speak to inspirational people and share inspirational stories to connect people together, inspire others, and help people learn something new. And first, there we go. I feel much better now. For those that didn't know, I took off my glasses. That's it. This episode is no different. This is episode 56. Take a chance and roll the dice. I have two guests this evening. Both of my guests are waiting patiently in the green room, ready to come out. They are Ben Campbell and Daniel Carver, and they will be joining us at 7:10 p.m. So make sure that you stay tuned for this. And also, I want three little things from you. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. The reason that I ask for these three things, when you press like, it means that the algorithms of Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, the places that we're streaming out to, go, oh, this is something important. Let's push it out further. And if you comment, it means I get to do things like this, where Linda Proctor has said, morning, Linda. Nice to see you. Emily Campbell has joined as well. Say whoop, whoop. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for joining. And also, just to let you know that if you share, we get more people into the Spill It fold. We open up the doors to the community grows, and we get to recruit more teacups into our community. If you haven't checked out our other episodes yet, make sure that you do. And you can do by heading over to the brand new Spill It website at www.spillit.uk, where you'll be able to see all of the video episodes, or the ones that go live every single week. You'll be able to play them back for the ones that you've missed. And also, if you want to listen to Spill It on the move, then you can do by heading over to the website and going over to the podcasts, which you can find over on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts too. Keep those comments and questions rolling in. I love it. Done, says Linda. Done to sharing. Thank you so much, Linda. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. Okay. Are you ready for some announcements? It is announcements time. I absolutely love the announcements time because I get to talk about future plans or just what's going on in general or anything like that. Well, basically, I have got two brand new projects coming up on Spill It, and I wanted to take this time to share them with you guys. Number one, we are getting closer and closer to my favorite time of year. For anybody that knows me, they'll know that I'm not really fond of Christmas. I don't really do Christmas. I've started doing Christmas a bit more, but I don't really like Christmas. There's reasons. There are obviously reasons. But one of the things that I absolutely love is Halloween. Halloween is my favorite time of year. There we go. Linda's straight in the comments. Halloween. It is Halloween, Linda. Halloween is my favorite time of year. It's my time where I get to dress up and I get to plan like Halloween parties and all of that lot. And I absolutely love the season. 'Tis the season to get scary. Well, I have got something planned for you guys over Halloween. For you guys who, maybe my age or older or round about my age or whatever, you'll probably remember a TV show called Are You Afraid of the Dark? Well, I am going to be launching my very own Midnight Society, where I will be inviting people to come along and read and tell their favorite scary story, or just a scary story that they found and they just think, you know what, I really want to share that. It's up to you. I don't care. But I'm going to be creating my very own Midnight Society where you can come onto the Spill It show and you can read your very own scary story for all of the viewers of Spill It. Now, these will be late night specials. They will be pre-recorded, so it won't be live, but you'll be able to watch it as it broadcasts at midnight throughout October. And then it will lead us to a very, very, very special surprise that I've got ready for Halloween night. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't. can't. It's a secret, Barbara. It's a secret. Comments are coming in already. Yay, says Linda, and spooky as well. I know. I can't wait. Just wait till you hear the rest of the plans as well. If you see things I post on social media, you'll kind of get it, because I ask for things of people, and then but it's all leading to a very spectacular Halloween special for this year. Now, if you remember last year for Halloween, we had we had Miss Sherry Vine, the legendary drag queen from over in the US. She was on the show for our Halloween special, and I was like, I'm gonna have to do something to top that, because Halloween's my time of year. So I think what I've got planned this year definitely tops that. Just to let you know, as a bit of a hint, there is no guest for the Halloween special. What could it be? What could it mean? I don't know. You'll have to wait and see. All of these announcements will be coming up. Oh, I can't wait to share with you. Upcoming as well, in just before we go into the spooky season, one of the things I'm going to be doing as well. But just before I continue with that, if you want to get involved with spooky season and you want to come on and read your own little scary story and be part of the Midnight Society, let me know. Drop me an email, marcus@spillit.uk, and you'll be able to come along and be part of the Midnight Society, read your own scary story. Let me know. Hit me up. Drop it in the comments box. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Before that, though, before we get into that, it's going to be September. And what I've got planned for September is we are going to be doing an LGBTQ plus month. So every single guest throughout September will be part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm going to be giving education around the LGBTQ plus community, about pride, about trans rights. So there's so many different guests that we've got coming on to talk about, to tell their story. And it's all going to be part of the LGBTQ plus month for Spill It, which I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be so, so cool. And we may have an extra special guest. I can't wait to disclose it. But we may have a very, very, very special and famous guest at the end of September as well. All happening right here in the Spill It community, and I can't wait. Well, I have talked your ears off. To be fair, I've just talked about the future of Spill It, and I can't wait. That's pretty much all I've said. I can't wait. But honestly, I can't. But you know what I can't wait for specifically? Because it is that time. It is 7:10 p.m. and my two lovely guests are waiting patiently in the back. We're going to bring them out. However, we're going to do things a little bit differently. So normally what I would do is I would bring out my guests and then we will go straight into it straight away. However, because I've got two guests, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to give them each their own little spotlight so then they can chat away and introduce themselves. So I would love for you guys to give a nice warm welcome to my very, very first guest. Please, can we have loads of different emojis, please? Post your favorite emoji, loads of clapping hands. If you want to post a unicorn, post a unicorn. There is a unicorn one, isn't there? I'm sure there's a unicorn one. Whatever, I don't care. Because my very first guest is here, and it is Mr. Ben Campbell. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Marcus. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
No worries. I'm so glad that you came on the show, that you wanted to come on the show, and you're here as well. You accepted. You're here. We're here together now, and yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
Would you like to, for those people who are in the comments or just listening at home on the podcast or watching this back or whatever, would you like to introduce who you are, what you do? I feel like Cilla Black. What's your name? Where'd you come from? Please, can you give us a little bit of an explanation of who you are, what you do, and why you're here today?
Yeah, sure. So you've invited us to be on here to talk about D&D. I got into D&D sort of about a little bit over 3 years ago. And so and I've been DMing, which DMing I realize I've got to explain my terms because not everyone's familiar. So DM is the dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's not something sexual in any way. It is literally just like an organized kind of creative board game sort of experience. And so basically as the DM, it's my role to kind of facilitate people's fun and kind of create an engaging storyline and things like that. It's basically kind of like if everyone's kind of playing a video game, you're making it as they play it, so that you're kind of throwing things at them, and it's a bit more of an interactive experience where a lot more improvising and coming up with things on the fly, but also some forward planning and thinking about how to sort of give people the sort of best, most fun experience you can do. So it's been a really good creative sort of outlet, and especially over the last kind of couple of years with everything that's been going on, it's been good to kind of have that creative outlet and have that way of kind of keeping in touch with people and connecting with people. So other than that, I'm from West Cumbria, so over on Whitehaven is my hometown, although I don't have the accent, so you just have to take my word on it. And so moved down to Preston last year to get married to my lovely wife Emily, who is in the chat.
Hi Emily.
Lots of heart eye emojis and stuff. So she's listening along. And so and it's just been a great way. I think D&D has been like a good way to kind of make new friendships and kind of get to know people as I've moved down. Obviously, sort of moving and sort of creating a new support network and a new kind of group of friends, and also for keeping in touch, because you can obviously do this kind of stuff online as well, kind of keeping in touch with some of the people back home and stuff like that. So it's been really a useful tool for me really over the last sort of year or two.
And we're definitely going to get into that, because obviously D&D is about bringing people together from different backgrounds as well, and kind of essentially you are, aren't you? You're creating your own community of people and getting them all involved together. So we are going to go to get into that. However, we have got a second guest, haven't we? So I would like, same again, guys, plenty of emojis again for my second guest this evening. He's waiting very, very patiently. It is his time to shine now. It is Mr. Daniel Carver.
Hey, what's happening, y'all?
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on, Marcus. I'm doing great. I any day I get to talk about D&D is a great day.
Good, I enjoy that.
But yeah,
for those who are at home, please can you introduce yourself, who you are, where you come from, what you do, and why you're here today.
So hello, Internet. My name is Dan Carver, and I am living in Preston currently. And in my spare time, I play Dungeons and Dragons as a player when I can, primarily at the moment as the Dungeon Master, which has been explained is the referee, storyteller, rule keeper, person who makes things go boom. It's a very multi-varied role. It's a lot of fun, and I can't really add on anything other than what Ben has said. Really, it's a brilliant hobby. It's seen a massive surge in popularity, not just in COVID lockdown, but also with more and more celebrities now coming out and saying, actually, I also play Dungeons and Dragons. So it's now gone from this sort of representation of sort of the only thing that sort of basement nerds play to just anyone can play it, which is fantastic. More people playing D&D is always a good thing.
Definitely. And I suppose, like, obviously with more and more celebrities, obviously the awareness is coming in from there as well. Definitely. And it definitely in inverted commas, because obviously you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where obviously people think of it as nerds in the basement.
Yeah.
It kind of normalizes it. Like, actually, it's not like that, and it kind of brings it to the forefront of people's minds, because let's be honest, there's a lot of TV and film that portray it as a bunch of nerds in a basement, and we're definitely going to talk about that.
I've got a lot to say on that. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, I have got a little game that I play with all of my guests. So are you ready to play a little game with me?
You bet.
This isn't Saw, is it?
Definitely not. Just a bit of fun. It's a little bit of an icebreaker. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is the time that you've been waiting for. It is the 5-second rule. That's right. It is the 5-second rule. This is a game that I play with all of my guests. This is a little bit of an icebreaker, just a little bit of fun. It's say the first thing that comes to the top of your head. Keep it clean. Don't keep it clean. It's completely up to you. There's no rules in this game. Just say the first thing that comes to your head. Okay. Now, I will ask you to name 3 somethings, and you have got 5 seconds to name those 3 somethings. It is as simple as that. Are you ready to play?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Cool. This is Linda's favorite game, by the way. So she can't wait. She's put not clean as well. Linda likes the dirty answers. Okay, here we go. We're gonna start with Ben. Okay. Ben, name 3 numbers that add up to 60.
20, 21, 19.
There you go. Yeah.
I kept it simple.
just in time. Just.
I was really thrown because I thought it was going to be word association. So like my mind was in like English mode, and I was like, oh, maths. Oh, I need to change gears to maths.
Yeah, I snuck a little maths in there. Okay, number 2 for Ben. Name 3 things you do when no one is looking.
I don't know. Sorry.
Time up. You got 0 for that one.
That was bad.
And your third one is name 3 famous bald people.
Patrick Stewart, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and
your time's up. Your time is up. You scored a total of 5.
Okay.
Well done. Mr. Carver, you've got 5 to beat. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Name 3 things you'll find in your bedside table.
Speakers, keyboard, and a monitor.
Nice. Well done. You find a monitor in your bedside table?
Well, the closest thing I've got to a bedside table is my computer table, which is near my bedside.
I'll let you off then. Okay. Name 3 famous blonde people.
Oh, I don't know.
That was 0 for that one.
Yeah.
Just to add,
I think the really hard thing with those ones is you think of a famous person and then you can't remember what their name is often like straight away, and then you can't think of any other people. Like on the bald one, I was like Jason Statham, but I couldn't remember what his name was. Like that split second, then I was like, I
was thinking of Sarah Michelle Gellar, and then I just couldn't.
Couldn't say the words.
I completely forgot what her name was. Please forgive me, Sarah Michelle Gellar. You were amazing in Buffy.
Yes, she was. That's a whole other episode that we've done 2 of, but that's definitely another episode. But yes, I completely agree. She was amazing in Buffy, and Buffy is my favorite TV show. So we'll,
Nice.
I don't mind at all though that you didn't get one because that gives me a chance. Like,
so just to add the pressure, you've got to score a full house. You've got to get 3 to beat Ben. If you get 2, then you draw with Ben.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's go for it.
Name 3 famous Susans.
Susan Boyle, and I don't know.
You got 1. Susan Sarandon.
That was it.
That was all that came to my mind.
That's the only one that I knew.
Yeah, I only knew Susan Boyle, and that's it. Yeah.
Well done, Ben. Ben, you are the winner of today's 5-second rule.
GG, well played.
How does it feel?
That's a very low winning score, that is.
Story of my life.
But I will take it. I will take it.
A win's a win at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how you got there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to ask you a very broad question here. Okay, I understand that it's going to be a lengthy topic, but in a nutshell, or as best as you can describe it, for those people at home who want to have a little bit of education around this, what is D&D?
Shall I start off with that one, Ben? And lead you into it?
I mean, you can start off.
Go for it. So D&D is Dungeons and Dragons. It was the first commercially available tabletop role playing game created by Gary Gygax, a game designer, and Dave Arneson. And it was born from miniature wargaming, where essentially Gary Gygax thought to himself, okay, so you've got all these games about armies going into battle, but what about the sort of like the singular heroes? What are they doing? You know, are they going on quests, etc.? And so he created Dungeons and Dragons, which would allow people to create a character in a fantasy world, and then they would be able to solve dilemmas, go into battle, explore, gather treasure, gather knowledge, and become legends in their own world. And the game grew in popularity. It was the first thing. It was the first of its kind. Nobody had ever sort of seen this before. It's now in its fifth version. The first version came out in 1974, and then you've got Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in 1977, second edition in 1989, third edition 2000, 2003 is version 3.5. 2008 is the fourth edition, but we don't speak about that. And 2014 is the fifth edition, which is where we're at now. And if you have a look, if you do track down some of the old books, you'll see that they were very rules heavy in the 70s, very, very lengthy, very wordy, and there was a lot of dice rolls. Now it is so simple. It's literally roll a dice, add two numbers together, boom, done.
Okay.
And that's what D&D is.
So I have a couple of questions before Ben explains his version of D&D. So the two questions that I've got, the first one is in relation to the dates. Did you say that the third one was like 1980 something?
The third edition of D&D was in 2000.
And then the one before that was?
The one before that was the second edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which was 1989.
So that's a huge gap between release and editions. Were they just really happy with the second edition, or what do you think that was?
My personal thoughts on my personal hypothesis is that essentially AD&D, at that time it was a very niche market, and it went to sort of like people that were into those sort of things. It wasn't it wasn't commercially accepted as it is now. A lot of it had to do with in the 1980s, for example, there was a moral panic about Dungeons and Dragons. It was falsely linked to Satanism and suicide. A lot of religious groups were trying to boycott D&D because they believed that it was essentially if you played it, you would go to hell. And to be fair, some of the iconography in there was inspired by sort of demons from other cultures, etc. But so I think that sort of played into it as well.
Okay.
And then you have like the third edition came out in 2000. I think they released it in 2000 because it was the millennium, and I think it was just time for an update, reprint. What better time to do it?
And then my second question would be that you said the fourth edition was released, and we don't talk about that. Now, Ben's also laughing, so I'm going to ask Ben that question. Why do we not talk about the fourth edition, Ben?
The fourth edition wasn't very popular. I think they were obviously trying to simplify things down, but they basically just made a lot of the classes just much the same. It was very samey, and I think there was lots of maths involved, so that like you would play like a combat, and you'd be like, okay, so I'm going to attack this person, and I get a +2 from that guy standing over there, and he's like blinded by this, and so he gets a -3 against this save, and basically it just became like a big maths game.
Yeah.
And people would spend ages, and they'd be like, have we included everything? Is there anything else we need to? Can I roll my dice now? Like,
yeah. For me, it essentially went backwards because D&D was created from the idea of the singular hero instead of the wargaming world, and essentially 4th edition D&D was just a war game. You use war game rules. You need to have like a map, a squares map, and you'd probably have to like get rules out and everything to make sure everything was fine. It was like Ben said, it was a massive step backwards. Fortunately, they fixed it with the 5th edition, which is where we are at the moment.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant. Yeah.
With regards,
there was some good stuff in the 4th edition, but I think it was buried under so much other stuff that it's like a good thing to go back and like mine for ideas for things, but it's not really a great edition in itself. It's the general consensus.
With regards to the question, what is D&D? Is there anything that you wanted to add on to what Daniel had said, Ben?
Well, I'm going to say I'm glad that Daniel went first, because otherwise, like, if I'd have said my thing and then he said his thing, I'd have just seen like I didn't know what I was talking about. So obviously, Daniel's given like a really detailed thing. I was just going to say D&D is just like a board game meets improv, and obviously there's not necessarily a board or anything. There can be, but it's basically kind of, if you enjoy board games. And you like to kind of have a relaxed kind of get together with friends and stuff like that, then it's a really good thing to get involved with, and you do build like actual memories. Like there are things that I can like picture in my mind that like bring me great joy. Like even like years later, you're like, oh, I did that really, and you'll talk about it with people that you played with, and you'll be like, oh, remember when this happened? Remember when such and such did this? And it's not so much. You don't really get those kind of memories necessarily from board games. You might get like remember him? He was good at that board game. It was really annoying because he always won. But you don't get like remember that one time we played this board game and this really cool thing happened. You don't tend to get that as much, and so it's kind of you do build sort of good memories with it, and it's got that kind of collaborative aspect, and there's obviously lots to get from it, but obviously we'll touch on that later.
So we're gonna talk about like the people involved and how it can bring communities together or bring people together to form a community, and also the effects on mental health and things like that as well. Now, just keeping on the baseline of D&D, can you explain for those people who do not know, what are the roles? Obviously, we know it's a game. Now, normally, if I pull out a board game, there's counters, there's dice. I'll be the red character or the red character, and I'll just trot along the map and all the board and whatever. Let's talk about like the roles that are available within the D&D world and why it is. So it's like a board game, but not a board game, if you will.
Yeah. I'm happy to start with that.
Go for it.
I think the two big kind of categories, obviously you've got like one person is the DM or the dungeon master, and they have a myriad of different jobs, in terms of it's generally they're setting up the adventure. It might be that they've got a book that has the adventure in, and that can kind of make things a little bit simpler. But then someone's going to ask, can I swing on the chandelier and dive across this chasm? And you have to be the one that goes, yes, but you need to roll something. And then you go, okay, can you do an athletics check? And then in your mind, you're going, what number do I want them to get to on that dice? And then they roll something and you tell them whether they fell down the chasm or the chandelier collapsed or anything like that. So that can be really fun in itself. And then also, you're there, to make sure people have a good time. And but I think I wouldn't want to put people off doing it, because you can start really simple and kind of ease yourself into it and get some sort of simple, nice adventures. With very few chandeliers to swing on, and then kind of going to like the player side. The players in a way kind of have the same role. They're all players, and they can all do very similar things. But they do kind of break it down into like, you'll have like your classes, and there are lots of different classes that you can be, and that's and class is basically just your what kind of character you are. So for instance, in Lord of the Rings, Aragorn was obviously a very different class to to Gandalf, and so was Frodo. They wouldn't all do the same things in equal ability. And so that probably is not worth explaining all of them, but you can imagine sort of you've got the rogue who's there to check for traps and pick locked doors and open booby trap chests and maybe do some scouting. And then you might have the barbarian who's there to break down doors if the rogue doesn't manage to pick the lock and fight on the front line and go berserk. And that can be very fun to play. And then you might have the more sort of clever wizard at the back who's casting some spells that will help out. So you do have the kind of different roles in the party. And so I think because you've got the different roles, people can have their spotlight. It's not sort of, you don't get to the locked door and everyone goes, oh, I'll have a go. It's kind of the rogues like, oh, this is my moment to shine. And hopefully they roll decent on their dice. And if not, the barbarian can have a go at it. But you've got like the different roles, and I guess one of the roles as a dungeon master as well is just to make sure people are getting their time to shine. To say, like it could be you're running a thing and you're like, okay, there's no locks to pick, but I'm just going to put a lock on this door, and then the rogue can do his thing. He can feel like he's really contributed, and then we can kind of like move on, and people don't feel like they're sort of forgotten or in the background.
That's really good, that like the fact that obviously because you are telling a story, aren't you? As the dungeon master, essentially, you are telling a story. But one of the things, obviously, that happens, like just in life, because I refer to like something like this as like a performance, because you said like obviously improv and all that line is all performance based, and you'll find that with a lot of performance based stuff, people fight for the spotlight. And what I suppose what you're saying is that as the dungeon master, it's your job to make sure that every single person has their chance to shine. Every single person has their spotlight, and I really like that. I find that it's quite inspirational, that the fact that obviously you are out there to shine a light on all these people and give them their time.
Yeah.
Mr. Carver, is there anything you would like to add?
I think one of the beauties of Dungeons and Dragons as well is that it's like I say, everyone gets a chance to shine, but the DM, the players are as much of the storyteller as the dungeon master, in that sometimes the players will do something that will just make the DM go, oh no, I did not plan for this. This is an amazing idea. I didn't think this through. And so you're having to really quickly sort of jump on that. There's that old saying, isn't there? No, the military saying no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Well, it's kind of similar to that. No plan survives first contact with the players. The players will always find a way of really outshining you, and it's brilliant to see as well. So that's all I've got to add to that one.
With regards to the social aspect then, so obviously we've talked about like what D&D is, the characters that are involved, being like the dungeon master, and obviously having to think of improv, thinking on your feet to tell that story. Now let's talk about the people that you get who want to be part of this, the social aspect of it. Let's talk about that for a second. What do you find in people that want to come along to this? Like, let's talk about the mental health side of things, the community side of things, the forming a friendship. Ben, you touched on it before, where you found, a new group of friends. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Daniel, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. I can start with this one. So one of the things that has really, really helped with everyone coming into sort of like playing D&D and realizing it's a fun thing, is that the 5th edition, well, two things. A, the 5th edition is really simple. Anyone can learn it. And B, the representation has vastly improved as well. Sort of touched on this when I mentioned about the 1980s with the moral panic, and everyone was saying, oh, this is linked to Satanism and suicide. But a lot of media representation with Dungeons and Dragons as well. Roundabout, I would say, up until maybe the Big Bang Theory, kind of. The representation was very, very negative of Dungeons and Dragons. It was always sort of like basement dwelling nerds who were, you know, like piles of Cheetos on one hand, miniatures on the other, and their voices were always the sort of same high pitched voice. Yeah, they love my D20 and they add this up to it, and I summoned the Lich Lord. I wish I had a good friend. And you know, it was just, you know, nobody's going to want to get involved with that because it's such a nasty portrayal of a great thing. And then you've got celebrities like Vin Diesel and Joe Manganiello who have come out and say, I play D&D. You know, Terry Crews has come out and say it. Kevin Smith, well, that's not really much of a surprise. Mike Myers, Will Whedon, again, no surprise. Jon Favreau, director. All these people have come out, these famous people, and said, actually, we play D&D and we get a lot of inspiration from it. So the representation side has vastly improved. And so you have all these people from all walks of life coming in and wanting to play sort of Dungeons and Dragons and want to try it out. And mostly they're just sort of saying the same question. Yeah, we've heard about it. We want to try it out and see what it's like. You do get people who are very sort of socially conscious and that they're not sort of sure that maybe they're new in town, or maybe they just don't know anyone, or they're naturally shy. They also come along and they try it out, and it's a wonderful way to meet people as well, because it's something that you have to go to every week or every 2 weeks, every month, whatever the itinerary is for the episode, you know, for the campaign. And so, you know, once a week, month, or whatever, you're getting out and you're meeting these people, and you're making this amazing epic story, which will have like crowning moments of awesome for each and every player. And it really helps with the social side of things as well, because even at the end of it, you're still having a chat and a laugh.
Let's rewind slightly, because obviously you talked about, there was two things that you mentioned, one like both like very, very early on, and one of them was obviously the portrayal of D&D within the media and obviously in TV and film, and obviously those the snot-faced kids and like being really, really geeky and like with the high-pitched voices and all that lot. But then you also what you mentioned way back at the start of the episode was the way that D&D was demonized. Now, do you think that there is a link between the two, that obviously maybe perhaps that it was portrayed in a certain way to kind of force people not to do it? Or do you think it was just a case of misrepresentation?
That's a very good question. I think it might be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I think that it's just easier to make jokes out of tropes, or it used to be back in the day. I think we've sort of grown up as a society now, and we don't really pick on people for laughs anymore. Please don't prove me wrong. But yeah, I think, but back in the day, it's, you know, I think it was just an easy way to get laughs. You know, you just portraying these socially awkward basement dwellers. But it wouldn't surprise me that if there was some kind of link to sort of like the satanic panic, I think they called it, the moral panic of the 1980s, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a link. I'd have to think on it more, to be honest.
With regards, I'll ask this one to Ben. So with regards to nowadays representation, so I very much wanted to start talking about D&D a little bit more and find out more about it when I started watching Stranger Things. It was in there, and I was like, "Oh my god, this looks amazing!" And it's very heavily part of the theme with Stranger Things and obviously D&D. Now, what do you think about the representation nowadays?
I think, you know, it's still got a little bit that sort of connotation that it used to have. I think a lot more people are playing it now, and I think the fact that the game is simpler than it's ever been helps massively, and you kind of a much lower sort of barrier for entry for people to get into it. And so it's definitely sort of open to more people because of that. I mean, I think I kind of wanted to play it since seeing, I think it was Community, the TV show, and they had like an episode where they played D&D, and I was like, that seems really fun. And that wasn't necessarily a perfect representation of the game, but it was kind of enough that it was like, actually, that does sound pretty fun. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. And then at the time, I'd just started dating my now wife, and found out that she played D&D, and there was something in me that was like, well, if she plays D&D, I can play D&D. She can't have a go at me if I'm playing it, because she plays it herself. And I just found a group within. It was very quick to find. I just like looked online, and I was like found a local group in the area, and then contacted them, and they were about to start a new campaign, and invited me to start with that. And then after a little while of sort of playing with people, I was like, actually, I think I could do a good job of that DM role. I'm gonna I want to be that. I want to do that. And so and sort of you take the good things that people have done and the bad things, and you go, okay, when I do it, I'm going to do it like this. And there's just something like really fun about that continual improvement side of it, of kind of like, okay, I can provide like a really fun experience for people, and you do get the odd knockback, but you can kind of like, you can learn from that and go, okay, next time I'll do it like this. But going back to the kind of the representation side, I think the representation is better. I mean, you see all sorts of people that want to play, and there's definitely more people who want to play than there are like games for them to play at. I think because sometimes people put it in their head that like being a DM is so complicated, and it's just a case of just get started. In fact, I would actually say if someone wants to, if someone really, really wants to play D&D, the best thing you can do is just watch a few videos on YouTube about how to be a DM, and then invite some of your friends. And I bet you'll find you'll invite them thinking, oh, I don't know whether they'll be like, oh yeah, I really want to try that. And just, start with something simple. There's something called a one shot, which is basically just a one-off little adventure. It's not like you're not telling your friends, I promise to run you a game every week for the next 5 years. Yeah. You're just saying like, okay, it's just a one-off game, or maybe a couple of sessions. And yeah, so I think the best way to get started is just, if you're the one that's passionate about it, just get started and be the DM. And you'll find it's lots and lots of fun. And then once you've done that for a little while, try and convince one of the other players to run a game, so you can play as a player every now and then.
We are gonna talk about like how people can get involved a little bit later on as well. One of the things I wanted to talk about was the effects or the positive effects, on mental health with regards to D&D. Now, for me personally, I feel like if you have social anxiety, to find a group where you are kind of like-minded people, you kind of want to kind of have that escapism, because let's be honest, it's like an escape, isn't it,
yes,
from your reality and
definitely
into this fantasy world where your choices make a difference. And I want to kind of touch on that because it's super important. In my head, kind of, I imagine it to be so like performing arts. So I'm a massive performer, and when you're training as an actor, you kind of put on these roles and you kind of fall straight into that role, and you forget about all the stuff that's happening. And I suppose in the world of D&D, that will also happen as well. And I'm just wondering if you guys have got any experience in that.
Yeah. No, that's just right on the money. It's about escapism. When D&D is really quite special, because if you sort of have a look back at all the sort of like civilizations, etc., they've got their own myths and legends, pantheons of gods, etc., heroes, villains, and for example, we've got like the myth. Well, not the myth side. It's more of a legend of a sort of King Arthur, Robin Hood. Robin from the rich, Stephen from the poor, King Arthur, Excalibur, the Wizard Merlin, dragons. We've got brilliant mythology there. But you've also got sort of like ancient Greeks and the Vikings, and if you sort of drag back in history, it's just amazing stories there. And what D&D lets you do is it lets you become the kind of sort of legend in those sort of types of stories. You are that sort of mythological hero, because you do grow in level as you get experience. You go up in character levels. The highest you can get is 20, and the higher level you are, the more fantastical powers that you may get. So if, say, for example, if you're a paladin, which is my favorite class, a holy knight, the higher level that paladin becomes, the more things that they can do with their holy magic, like destroying undead. They can turn into an avatar of their god, and you are essentially the hero of this sort of mythological tale, or you can be the villain as well. That's something that we haven't touched on yet. You could also be the villain if that strikes you, and and it's just an amazing escapism that there's nothing quite like it.
Ben, have you got anything to add to that? We've lost your mic.
Sorry, I was on mute.
There we go.
Yeah, I got a little button. I obviously forgot to press it. So yeah, yeah, it is, good escapism. It's good kind of a thing in your week that, like, if you've had a bad week and you're like, okay, on this day, on Wednesday or whatever day, you're like, okay, I'm going to hang out with some friends. And also it's kind of, there's going to be moments where everyone at the table is going to give you their undivided attention. And I think that can be really useful for people, because I think in today's society, there's often very few moments where you've actually got someone's undivided attention, where they're paying attention to you and what you say means something to them. And so, like, partly obviously as a DM, you get that, but also like, as a player, when it's your moment to shine, when it's your turn in combat, so it's turn based. So when it comes to your turn, no one else can do anything. It's your turn. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And yeah, you do have those, those epic moments, and yeah, it's kind of, I think that's really useful to give you, after you've had like a really epic session, you leave and you're like, oh, that was really good. That was really good. And it kind of drags you out of whatever you've been going through in the week or whatever.
I absolutely love that. For me, it's so interesting. It is something that I really do want to kind of, I think, like, I kind of want to dip my toe into it a little bit and be like, oh, and then like just throw myself, because I know exactly what I'm like. I'll dip a toe in, I'll be like, yep, I'm diving straight in, and I'll be there and I'll be hooked. But for other people who may not be, like, say, as adventurous as what I am, and they may have just had a bit of a thought about, or maybe it's something that I could probably do. It does sound very, very interesting. Where can people find more information, or how can people get involved in something like this?
So nearly every town and every city has their own community. Social media is a wonderful thing with their groups. You just literally look it up. Preston has its own Preston Dungeons and Dragons group, and it's really as simple as just dropping us a post and saying, hi, I'm new and I want to try, I want to give this a shot, can somebody help me? And we will leap at the chance if we can help you, because we want more people to be a part of this amazing, wonderful world. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, like, probably I'd just add to that, like, if you really want to give it a go, then, like, my advice is watch. There's a YouTuber called Matt Colville, and he's got like a video series on running D&D, and it starts like really basic, like super basic adventure. The blacksmith runs into the tavern, is like, goblins have kidnapped my daughter, somebody help me. And you've got to go and find and kill some little goblins and whatever, and rescue the damsel in distress. And you've got like a really basic kind of thing you can do, and you can kind of progress from there. And I'd just say, like, play it with your friends or your family or something. And I mean, it's a great game there are books and stuff on playing it with kids. It's a good thing. I plan, once I've got kids, I plan on running a game for them and perhaps some of their friends or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of a good just jump in and get involved. And there's some, don't feel like you need to do like something crazy to start off with. I think sometimes people like spend ages like world building, and they're like 3 years in and they're like, oh no, I'm not ready for a game. I'm still building my world for them to play in.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's just too far. Just like spend like a couple of hours, just go over it, work out what you're going to do. And you only need to build the rail like a few feet in front of the players. You don't need to finish the whole, track. You just need to have enough for next week, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when you do it like that, I think the players get they get a lot of enjoyment, because they can see how you're reacting to the decisions they make, rather than just like, no, you need to go to this dungeon, stop walking away.
Oh no, you can't do that. No.
So yeah, just get involved, and if no one else wants to run the game yourself, and then maybe one of the players will pick it up and go, actually, I want to have a go at this. And yeah, it's good. I recommend both being a DM and being a player. Both are fun for different reasons.
And one of the things that I want to touch on as well is we've just obviously come out of lockdown. Now, obviously, D&D requires, as far as I'm aware, and I don't know what it has been or what it's evolved into, but D&D for me, in my head, I've always pictured it as it's people sat around a table and getting together and face-to-face and all of that lot. Now, obviously, with regards to the pandemic, it meant that people couldn't meet up face to face because we had lockdowns. You had to stay in your houses, and Zoom suddenly massively took off and things like that. And I'm just wondering, did you manage to keep campaigns going? Did you manage to get involved? Like how, and if that is the case, how did you manage to keep these going throughout lockdown?
I think with me, in terms of like when I've come into this hobby as like doing the DM side of things, the most of the games I've run have been online. Because of when I've done it. I do prefer in person, but you've got things like Roll20.net is basically like a what's called a virtual tabletop. So basically, you can like upload like a map, and then the players can get little tokens, and they can have their character sheet inside the website, and basically, they can click a button and it'll roll the dice for them, and you just do kind of like over normal, maybe over Discord or something, do like a chat and sometimes video, depending on what people are comfortable with. And so there's lots of ways to do it. I'd say like it requires a little bit more prep because you have to kind of like have a map and stuff a lot of the time. You can do it just audio, but I prefer to kind of have a map and things. So I end up spending a little bit more time sorting that out. Whereas in person, I can just kind of wing it, and I've got some grid paper. I can just draw a quick boat on and be like, right, this is the boat. This is what we're on. This is what's happening. whereas online, I'm spending ages like trawling through the internet, like trying to find the perfect picture to display as what they're going to be on. But yeah, so there are lots of ways to play online. And you can actually, if you want to play online, Roll20 actually has a feature for finding games. It is a little bit hit or miss. Be prepared to just like have a look at a campaign and then drop out because it's just random all over the world. But you can even look for. So I found a game recently, and I literally just searched. Right, okay, I've got these evenings free. I'm going to search for these 2 games on these 2 days that are looking for players. And then like the following day I was doing a session 0, which is like your first session where you decide stuff and make a character and everything. And so that's taken me like a day to find a game and just get on. And now I'm playing with some people in America who are playing in the middle of the day, and I'm playing like late on in the evening. So yeah, so there's lots of ways to kind of get involved, and it is quite easy to get involved online.
Yeah.
Mr. Carver, what about you? How did you manage to do it all through lockdown? Was it the same thing or was it different?
So I was running a campaign right up until lockdown, and then sadly that went because not everyone was able to make it online. So I found another group of players from a different campaign. I sort of joined their one, and then when the DM had to bow out, I was like, okay, I can. I've been playing with you guys for long enough. I'd like to DM a campaign with you, please. And they all agreed. So I currently am running a campaign. I'm running the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, which where the players basically go into the D&D version of Hell in order to rescue a city. We're having a lot of fun. One of the things that makes it easy for me online as well is coming from a background of media and radio. I am a massive fan of sound effects because I think that sound effects in either it's a radio show, a podcast, a YouTube video, or anything, a well-timed sound effect can just change like the whole entire game. And it's been very easy for me because I've got all the background music on my computer. I've got the sound effects of fireballs and doors crashing as well. And I can play these online. And in some ways, I do prefer it online, but you can't beat the face-to-face interaction with people as well. There's just nothing quite like it. So I'd end up, in my campaigns, I'd end up being a big speaker, basically, and using my tablet as a sort of a makeshift a mixer, essentially, and pushing buttons and making the sound come out. It's brilliant. And the thing about D&D as well is, you might be someone who actually I'd rather listen to people play first rather than play it myself, which is fine. The brilliant bit about internet media is it has introduced Dungeons and Dragons to like everyone on the planet essentially, and so you've got things like Matt Mercer's campaign. Matt Mercer, who is like the go-to DM. In some cases, he runs Critical Role on his YouTube. And I think that's really helped a lot of people sort of go, oh wow, that's amazing. They look like they're having fun. I want to get involved as well. You might be someone who is like, do you know what? I don't really enjoy the social aspects of it, but I'd rather write instead. So you've got play by post role playing, which came from the whole D&D. It was essentially, well, what if we weren't around a table and instead we were just writing, and we, instead of telling the story through actions and speech, we're telling it in the form of prose. And that there are some niche communities on there as well. So even if you're into D&D and you're like, do you know what, I like the concept of it, the idea of being the hero in the story and playing with other people, but I don't like X, Y, and Z. There is something out there for everyone where you can tailor make the experience to your own. And there's also other systems out there as well. Dungeons and Dragons was the first, but it's not the only one. If you're like, do you know what, I'm more of an interview with a vampire person instead of Lord of the Rings, great. Vampire the Masquerade. Like it helped bring vampires, make vampires cool again, and Rice sort of helped out as well. If you're like, do you know what, I like post-apocalyptic stuff, great. There's some stuff there as well. There's something for everyone. So
I love that.
It's brilliant.
I absolutely love that. With another question that I've got for, and this goes to both of you. So just to kind of talk about a little bit of an experience that you've both had. Can you describe or talk about, your best experience? So obviously, Ben, you've mentioned it multiple times where you walk away from that and you think, oh my God, and it's a memory and you think, you absolutely love that because this happened and whatever. And I'm just wondering if you'd be able to share an experience like that, a very memorable experience that you've taken away from a game of D&D.
Yeah, I mean, like one comes to mind. Playing my half-orc barbarian named Torg, and so barbarians are very fun if you just want to like relax, roll dice, and just go nuts. And the party opened a door into a room where there were lots of bad guys, including a Medusa. So like Medusa, like from the Greek myths, where snake-haired lady who turns people to stone, and one of the people she looked at turned to stone. But in order to, I think the way the rules work is you actually have to look at her in order for it to happen. So and you get some like roll of the dice to see whether it affects you that round or and so my barbarian decided to close his eyes so he didn't get turned to stone, and ran at the Medusa, and he had a magic item called a bag of holding, and it's like a little bit like the TARDIS, where you've got it's bigger on the inside, so it's like a bag, and it's got loads and loads of room on the inside, way bigger than what the bag actually is. And so I grappled the Medusa, which I was very good at because I was a barbarian, and I was in rage mode. And I grappled the Medusa, wrestled it into the bag, and which obviously came with its own rolls and stuff. And the DM was, making me roll strength checks and all that stuff, which I was a barbarian, so I was doing strength checks all day. And wrestled the Medusa into the bag, then carried it out to the hallway that we'd just been in, and threw the bag into a trap that we'd passed. And the bag has the stuff for the magic item. It has basically, one of the risks of it is if you tear the bag, then it opens a rift it basically opens like a wormhole to the astral plane, which is like another plane of existence, and randomly deposits the what's inside the bag into the astral plane. So upon going into the trap and getting broken, the Medusa and everything else I'd kept in the bag was sent off into another plane of existence, and no one else was turned into stone. And I was down a magic item, but very pleased with myself. And yeah,
Perseus has got nothing on you.
I bet that would have been an absolutely amazing moment there. You obviously achieved something there, but to be like, because obviously, as we said right at the beginning, the individual characters, you affect the story, you progress the story forward. So for you to think on your feet like that as well, it's very commendable, actually, because you've got to have an imagination through through this game.
I could have just rolled an attack, or looked at it and maybe I'd have passed my saves and maybe I'd have been able to beat it. But like one of the things I like about D&D is like, there's the default thing: I roll an attack, I cast the spell. But then there's also, okay, what's in my surroundings? What's going on? How can I change the conditions of the test? Like Kirk would have in Star Trek. If there's no unwinnable situation, you just need to change the conditions of the test. And so it's fun little things. I think that's one of the things I love being a player, is I love coming up with a creative solution. That's always fun.
Mr. Carver, same question to you. Have you got a memorable moment that you'd like to share?
I do. When I was DMing a campaign for a group of friends, it was sort of a comedy Terry Pratchett-esque campaign set in the city of Waterdeep, but I sort of changed things up to be a little bit more comedic. And one of my characters was a dwarf called Zoblob. And Zoblob, I sort of changed him from being this sort of mellow out, chilled person to someone who was very much into the color purple. Because I saw sort of a throwaway line, he sells purple oddities. And I was like, okay, let's just like take that as far as we can possibly go. He's wearing a purple robe. He's got a purple beard. He's smoking something with purple smoke. And then the key to any good character is the voice. So I was trying to find the voice. And I ended up coming up with something like this. Hello, welcome to Zoblob's Oddity Shop. I love the color purple. And I was just riffing and coming up with these one-liners to do with the color purple, and I came up with a purple sword, which instead of cutting people, you'd hear a voice in your head screaming obscenities and insults at you, and and it was called the Sword of Emotional Damage, and he only had it because it was purple. And I think one of my favorite lines I came up with was when the characters ended up just going back to the shop to see what on earth was happening, and I just came up with this throwaway line. I just said, thank you for shopping at Zoblobs. Of all the repeat customers I've had, you're the first. And and those are the magical moments where you're creating these characters as a DM, but also where the players are just seeking out these characters because they just want to interact with the world that you've created. And I think that's when you've done a good job. And they were talking about Zoblob, and they were talking about everybody basically that I was voicing. They were really, really enjoying it, and I was just like, yes, this is what it's all about. So yeah.
With regards to final bits of advice for anybody that wants to kind of do this and get involved now, what advice would you give to someone?
Just do it. That's it.
I think one piece of advice that I would say that we haven't mentioned, and just quickly, is if you're DMing a game or you're going to play in a game, it's really useful to have something called a session zero. You can search up what that is online. Basically, just as rather than just go straight to playing, it's basically a time when you look and see what people expect of the game, what the DM maybe expects. You don't want the DM doing a really serious thing and the players come in with like expecting like Monty Python, or vice versa. You all want to be on the same page of what we're doing, and then also just where people can say if there's any like big no-nos for them in any kind of areas. There might be certain things in their past that means that there's certain topics that they don't want to go over. And there's certain things people are comfortable with. Like for me personally, as a DM, I don't really like doing like lots of relationship stuff. Like as in obviously like normal relationships, but like romantic stuff, because I don't really want my friends like chatting me up at the table. I don't want to play like the busty barmaid in the tavern, because that's just not what I'm here for. It's just not like what I find fun. So I can, at a session zero, I can say, look, I'm not really about this. So like bear that in mind when you're making your characters. If you want some sort of romance simulator, like go somewhere else. Like, but then there's other things. Someone might have like arachnophobia or something or other. There might be something that actually really would, be difficult for them. And just kind of setting that expectation, working out, okay, what are people's triggers, and also just kind of making people aware that, like, okay, I'm not going to hold you to this in terms of, if later down the line, if there's something that you're like, actually, this is going a bit far for me, I don't like the direction this is going in, making sure people feel comfortable to come to you and say, actually, can we not do that again? Or can we stop? And kind of setting those kind of things. So I think it's really healthy to take time at the beginning just to kind of make sure that those things are covered.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like the opportunity to talk about that we may not have covered right now?
For me, I would say a little piece of advice I just thought as well. If you want to get into it and you want to create a character, it can be overwhelming. I always say to people, if it's your first character, make it a cliche, because then it just helps. You don't have to worry about what classes you're going on to, etc. Just be a cliched character. No one's gonna fault you for it. Honestly, my first character was a knight in shining armor. And yeah, that's pretty much my advice on how you'd sort of get into it as a player. And as a DM, I would just say, just go for it. I did, and best decision I made so far.
Ben, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about now?
No. I mean, I agree with what Daniel said. Yeah, just get started and get going with it, and you'll make mistakes, and you'll learn from them, and it's no big. Like, I know, obviously, like, there's life and death isn't literally on the line. There's nothing that you can do that can't be undone. There's the stakes are in a way very, very low. So just have a go, and YouTube's just a great resource. There's so many good YouTubers on there with lots of resources on being a good player, on player etiquette, and if you're worried about, am I going to make a fool of myself, how do I know what dice to roll? There's loads of videos on YouTube. You can just look it up, and so it's all there for the taking, really.
Perfect. Where can people find you guys if they wanted to get in touch with you to find out more about D&D? Maybe they wanted to find out the groups that you do and get involved in that, or where can people find some of the groups that you're part of?
I'd say Preston D&D Society is a Facebook page. That's usually a good place for people to kind of find out what's happening locally. Obviously, I said before, Roll20 is a good way if you want to just do something online, to find a game. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the time to DM for all of Preston. So so I'm actually going to say, don't contact me asking to be your DM. I'm already at capacity. I'm running 3 games. I'm at capacity.
And what about you, Daniel?
Where there's disco music, laughter, and love, I'm there in spirit. But for something physical, Preston role playing, D&D Preston Role Playing Society is where I am. I am DMing one group at the moment, which is full. But I'm always happy to chat to people about Dungeons and Dragons any day of the week. Just drop us a post, tag me in it, and I will be on my way. I don't have much of a social media presence, unfortunately. I'm not a big YouTuber or streamer. So yeah, it's Facebook or bust, I'm afraid.
Brilliant. And can I have some final thoughts? Let's do a wrap up of today's episode, kind of an inspirational Jerry Springer-esque moment of your final thoughts. And this is for both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great hobby to get involved with, and it's one that you'll definitely make friends. And it's one as well, if you do at any point have to move to another place, another part of the country or something, it's one of those hobbies that it's actually it's really useful. It's useful in your private life, and just the fact that you can connect with people in different places over a shared interest. And I always think it's useful having something like that and it's kind of shared experiences. I can have a conversation with Daniel and we're speaking the same language when we're talking about D&D, and we'll agree on most stuff probably. And so yeah, it's just a useful thing, and I can't really see anyone having massive regrets. Although I will say that there is a saying in the D&D community that no D&D is better than bad D&D. So if you join a table and you're this is a bit I'm not feeling it with, just just leave and find another table. It's or even if it's bad, just even if you don't have another table to go to, stop, reevaluate, and just I think if they have a session 0, as I was saying before, that's a good sign that it's you've got a DM who actually cares about how they're affecting people and what they're saying, and so that's a good sign that it's probably a decent group if they've got something like that.
And what about you, Mr. Carver? Have you got some final thoughts for us?
I do. Yeah, so what was once this thing that was mocked on TV that many people thought only basement dwelling virgins played has now become this socially acceptable, amazing hobby. And all I can say is it's about bloody time. And we will welcome you. It doesn't matter what experience you've got. You may be a seasoned veteran. You may never have seen a D20 in your entire life. It doesn't matter. All are welcome to the table. All you really need is your imagination and some basic arithmetic skills that you would have learned in primary school. That's it. So please do not be afraid. I know that's easier said than done, but we are, the best D&D players are the ones that say, yeah, all are welcome at the table. Come on in.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been absolutely amazing having you on the show and talking about all of this. It's been so insightful. I've learned so much as well. And I'm hoping that those who are listening to this have learned something as well too. Now, at the end of every episode, I give my guests the opportunity to give a quote, and it can be something that they stand by, live by. It could be something that they've heard that they just really like, or it could be something that they've made up and they just think, you know what, that is the quote for me. And I'm just wondering if you guys have got a quote for me this evening.
Sure. I came up with one today on the spot, which is the dream's not dead unless you say it is, which is my sort of personal standby. Whatever you want to do in life, whatever your dreams may be, whatever your goals are, it's not dead until you say it is. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So go out and do it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ben, have you got a quote for us as well?
Mine's a Terry Pratchett quote. I love Terry Pratchett and Discworld books. I get a lot of inspiration for D&D from that. And the quote is, fantasy is an exercise bicycle for the mind. It might not take you anywhere. And you learn lots of useful things in playing D&D and also reading books. I love reading books. It's good to kind of get that creative thing going because it will actually help you in lots of different ways. It's always good to be creative and sort of be able to think on your feet.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being so open and honest with us and educating us on something that, to be fair, as Mr. Carver quite rightly said, needed to be educated because we've gone through many years of misrepresentation of the D&D community, and quite rightly, the light has been put onto it, and actually, it's not as bad as what people think. So get involved. You are now free to say your goodbyes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on board, Marcus. It's been absolutely amazing. And goodbye to the Insta, Google, Face tweet people.
Thank you,
Mr. Carver.
Thanks for having us, Marcus. It's been really good. Been good to chat about stuff. And if people do have questions, then I will answer them on Facebook.
Good, cool. Same here. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye. Wow. An amazing episode. I'm sure that you'll agree as well. Deborah Cade there as well. Yes, I like that quote from Mr. Carver. And yes, another great quote as well from Mr. Campbell. Simon Ball has commented as well, saying, nice one, lads. See ya. It was a great episode, and I've learned so much. The thing is, so I first saw something to do with D&D when it was in one of my favorite TV shows, which is The IT Crowd. And I saw an episode in The IT Crowd, and I was like, "Oh my god, this looks so cool!" And even then, it was kind of portrayed as a geeky kind of thing, but there was a comedy element to it where they got business people involved in it, and all these business people were like, "Yeah, I want to get involved," and they got really into the story and all that. And it was really, really fun to watch. And then again, as I say, the second time that I saw it and thought, actually, this is something that I'm really interested in, was when I started watching Stranger Things, and it was on there. So I wanted to say a massive thank you once again to Mr. Carver and Mr. Campbell for both coming onto the show and for speaking their truths and telling us all a little bit about D&D. And also thank you guys in the comments for participating, for leaving your comments, for being so brilliant as always. And also you guys listening at home via the podcast, thank you so much for choosing Spill It to listen to. Coming up, that was it. That was July, guys. July is over. Oh my God, this year is flying by. Coming up in August, I have got some guests lined up for you. Kicking off August, we have got the fabulous Caitlin, who is going to be coming on for episode 57, Eat Well, Live Well, where she'll be talking about her past and how she changed her diet. Not only just changed her diet, but changed her life to live better and to break away from the toxicity that was in her life as well. Then in week 2, we will be opening up with the band Regional 1 as they talk about their brand new album that they've released, Smoke It Away, and also performing during lockdown and then trying to bag all of these gigs coming up as well. These guys are absolutely amazing. If you haven't checked them out, I mean, you can give them a listen to over on your favorite streaming service. I've been listening to some of their music over on Spotify. Make sure that you do. Guys, these are a really, really cool band. Then we will be having Mr. Eric coming onto the show to talk about his episode 58, My Son, Autism, and Me. He'll be talking about his son who has autism and how he has been inspired by his son, especially to write a book as well. So we'll be talking about all of that. It's going to be such a good episode. And then last but not least, to close off August, we will be talking to Lucas Chapman, who will be talking about Care After Care for our 59th episode. Lucas was brought up in care, and then he's coming onto the show. He will be coming on the show to talk about what life is like after care and what is the aftercare. Because in his experience there's not a lot, or to some people there will be a lot, but in his experience there wasn't a lot of care and he had to go and find it himself. And I can't wait to share that episode with you guys. It's going to be so cool. I cannot wait for August. It's next week. I cannot wait. It's good. My name is Marcus Wright. You can find me on all the social medias that you want to, on the website as well. If you head over to the www.spillit.uk, you'll be able to find all my social medias on there. There are Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Yes, I have a TikTok. Yes, I do things on TikTok. I haven't done anything on TikTok for a while. I need to really do that, don't I? I also have my Snapchat on there. Basically, any social media you can find me on is over on my website, so make sure that you check that out at www.spillit.uk. When I don't do this, I run a radio show called A Little Bit of Marcus, and you can find that by tuning in to Beat 103 across Central Lancashire and South Ribble. And if you're wanting to get involved in that, you want to have any shout outs or request music or whatever, then you can do by following my Instagram handle at MarcusBeat103. If you're wanting to support me and the work that I do, then you can do. You can buy merchandise, you can join the official Patreon, you can invite people into the Spill It community, and you can also leave reviews. Some of the new merch that we've got available as well. Look at this. We have a little bit of merch. A little bit of merch, hoodies and t-shirts are now available because it's a little bit of Marcus with a little bit of merch. I love it, but you can now get that available. And there's going to be a sale on with the rest of the Spill It Beanie first edition beanie hats as well. So make sure you keep an eye out for that, because that sale will be starting from the 1st of August. Ooh, sale. I love a good sale. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for tuning in, for choosing this to listen to at home. It is an absolute pleasure as always. And until we spill it again, it's bye for now. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Spill It. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to do so. Spill It goes live every week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And a special thank you to these amazing teacups.